The Brotherhood got another one. Shelton Henderson commits to Duke, joining their class of 2025. Jon Scheyer is on a heater. We got to discuss it.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us on Thursday, November 7th, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop for everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. We're talking men's basketball today. Shelton Henderson commits to Duke, joining the Brotherhood, and Jon Scheyer is tearing it up on the recruiting trail in the best way possible. We'll discuss that and more with Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Durham, here on today's show. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Also, take some time to watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, share it with your friends. Really appreciate all the support that we get on Locked On Blue Devils. So thank you so much for doing just that. You can follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So excited to bring him on into the program, the aforementioned Kevin Connelly. And Kevin, we got to talk about Shelton Henderson, the newest commit for the Duke men's basketball team. It's unbelievable what Jon Scheyer continues to do out there on the recruiting trail. This one felt like, you felt pretty good about the likelihood that Henderson would ultimately end up committing to Duke. Nothing's ever safe until it officially happens. And now we've got word that he wants to come play college basketball for the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, JJ, I tried to give you and all the listeners out there warnings. I said, from the time period from about a month out, from when the high school basketball season and college basketball season start, a lot of these guys are going to commit because they want these commitments out of the way before they begin their senior years of high school basketball. And also coaches aren't going to be out recruiting as often as they would in the offseason, then they're going to be in season. And lo and behold, Duke gets 4 commits in the span of about 3 weeks, going back from the Boozers in mid-October to now Shelton Henderson in early November. So I tried to give you guys the warning. I told you these guys were going to come off the board quickly, and they do. And Shelton Henderson's going to be a Blue Devil next year.
Yeah, it's 4 commits already in the class of 2025. It's unbelievable stuff from Jon Scheyer, what he's been able to do out there on the recruiting trail. This one, we talked about how it felt like it was going to go in Duke's direction for quite some time. You factor in the connections that he's got to the Lucas family, playing for JL3 out there on the circuit, being from Bel Air, Texas, Bel Air High School, that high school connection with Jay Lucas on the Duke basketball coaching staff. Kind of felt like this was going to go in Duke's favor. And then people have gotten a chance to watch Shelton Henderson's game over the last few weeks. We've had Brandon Jenkins on from 24/7 Sports, one of their national recruiting insiders. And what I hear time and time again is this guy is as tough as they come. He's able to attack downhill aggressively on the offensive end, but really what he can do on the defensive end, getting after you, is really impressive. And he's going to want to fight for playing time right away as a freshman.
Yeah, one thing that kind of when you watch him play, and I've never gotten a look at him with my own 2 eyes. I've only watched him on film. It's almost like you could be watching like a middle linebacker in football, just with the way he is built, about 6'6", really tough kid. And when he drives or when he plays defense, the opponents almost bounce off of him. That's how tough and physically gifted he is at such a young age. And you think that's only going to develop now as he continues to work out in his senior year of high school and then eventually when he gets on campus this spring. So that physical maturity that he has is only going to grow and continue throughout these next 12 months.
He's the 4th top 35 recruit for Jon Scheyer in this class. Shelton Henderson, specifically, when we look at the 247 Sports rankings, he's number 15 in the entire country. The composite rankings, he's number 22, 6'6", 220 pounds, physically built, man, already to kind of be in high school. Like, that's crazy.
Well, JJ, it's kind of a tough comparison, but if you bear with me, I think I'll make it. You can compare Shelton Henderson, in my opinion, right now to somebody like Isaiah Evans. And I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about in terms of their game. So Isaiah Evans, right now we all know, is a very offensively gifted player, but obviously still has a lot of work to do defensively. Shelton Henderson is kind of just the opposite. He is a rugged, hard-nosed, tough defender, but his offensive game is a work in progress, specifically his shooting from the outside. So I think you can make some comparisons between those two players, different skill sets, but in terms of where they are and where their games are, that's where you can see the development, that they're a plus for Isaiah Evans, plus offensive player, has to get better defensively. For Shelton Henderson, he's a plus defender, but he has to get better offensively.
Shelton Henderson had an interview with ESPN immediately following his commitment. And he says, quote, "I chose Duke because they believe in me and they have a great atmosphere and history. It was so easy to fall in love with their pipeline of sending people to the NBA. I think I could be one of the next to join and they could help me get there. To be a Blue Devil is going to be such a surreal feeling for me because it's been my dream school since I started watching basketball. I also think it means that my hard work is paying off and the hours in the gym are showing," end quote there from Shelton Henderson. So immediately references, hey, Duke, the Brotherhood takes over the NBA. We've known this. It's going to continue to be that way with guys like Shelton Henderson. The way Duke has been branding over the last 3, 4, 5 decades has been unbelievable, with kids that are nowhere near the Durham, North Carolina area growing up and dreaming of playing for Duke basketball. Like, that's not tailing off just because there's a new head coach in Jon Scheyer.
No, it's not. I guess that was one of the questions with Mike Krzyzewski leaving and Jon Scheyer stepping in as the head coach. And really from day one, the recruiting has not changed at all. Maybe it's even gotten better. So, yes, certainly, there are these national programs and national organizations in sports. Duke is certainly one at the college basketball level. Obviously, you have a handful of others like Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina at football. You have your banner programs in Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, so on, Notre Dame, so on and so forth. And then obviously everyone knows some of them at the professional level, whether it's the Yankees, the Lakers, the Cowboys, etc. So yeah, people still want to come and play for Duke. These kids see Duke playing on the biggest stage. And one thing I should kind of point out, I think that shouldn't go unnoticed, is a lot of what these kids see is social media. And I think everyone has talked about how big and far and beyond Duke's social media team is compared to other schools around the country. And you're kind of seeing it. That kind of helps in recruiting as well. So I think those folks over there that are behind that Duke social media team deserve their praise as well for helping create this Duke brand and make it as big as it is today.
No doubt about that. Really excited to see Shelton Henderson join the Brotherhood. He's going to be a big-time player for this class of 2025. And again, it continues to show Jon Scheyer's pretty good at what he does. Pretty good out there on the recruiting trail. Let's talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll focus on the upcoming basketball game for the Blue Devils against Army after we take a quick break here on the program. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right, FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and it's the perfect time for you to get ready to get in on the NFL action. Right now, new customers can bet $5 on any bet out there and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get in the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more all in one place, and it's on the same page where that you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Right now, you got action tonight in Thursday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals go on the road to take on the Baltimore Ravens in that AFC North matchup. The Ravens favored by 6.5 points. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. The show today is also brought to you by our friends over at Hims, changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance needed. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's hims.com, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plans. HIMS, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, we're back here today. JJ Jackson with Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham, talking recruiting for Duke men's basketball. What a tear Jon Scheyer's been on. 4 recruits in the class of 2025. That's right. It was such a long offseason. I didn't love not having recruits coming in. It's probably going to be something that we're going to have to get used to this day and age with the transfer portal being as crazy and active as it is. But look, all of a sudden, before the basketball season starts, Kevin, you mentioned it. You kept talking about wait. It's going to come. They want to get this done before the high school season start. And now, all of a sudden, you look, Duke's got the number 1 recruiting class. 4 commitments right away off the board. The Boozer twins, Nick Kaminia and Shelton Henderson. What a job Jon Scheyer has done, and this train's not slowing down.
Yeah, it's certainly not. I feel like it's going to be a little bit hard to see anyone overtake them for the number 1 overall recruiting class, just because they do have 4 top 20 to 30 recruits, depending on which service you're looking at. Interesting to see how many more they take, because remember, Jon Scheyer said during the offseason he's not going to have many more, if any, of these 6, 7, 8-man freshman classes. Now you're already at Ford. Do they get 1 more and make it 5? I think you're also looking at transfer portal guys, obviously, once the season comes to an end. And then obviously at some point we have to have a conversation about roster retention and who's going to stay, who's going to go. But only with 1 game under your belt, that's probably a little bit difficult to say, except for the guys that we think are going to head to the NBA draft.
Without a doubt. I mean, look, and it's something that we've talked about with Jon Scheyer saying, hey, maybe we're done with these large recruiting classes that you're talking about. But I've had conversations just with my dad over the last few weeks, and a common theme that we have is, look, the best players want to play for Duke. It's really hard, I would believe, for Jon Scheyer to say, you know what? I don't want them to come play for us anymore. Like all these guys want to come play for Duke. It's really hard to get into the mindset of saying, no, probably shouldn't take them.
Well, yeah, no, he said like they are still going to go after the elite high school basketball talent, but it's just not going to be as many guys as they have had over the last several years. I mean, just trying to go off the top of my head, what is this year's freshman class? 6 or 7 recruits?
Yeah.
Even you go back to last year, there was a ton of freshman recruits. Now all of them just about left, besides Caleb Foster, who stuck around for his sophomore season. So, yeah, they're still going to go after these elite players. It's just not going to be those massive recruiting classes when you have 7, 8 freshmen on your roster.
The last chat with Brandon Jenkins, again from 247 Sports, their national recruiting insider, who's a friend of the program, gives us updates frequently. Duke's still very much in the running for Nate Ahmet, another talented 5-star in this class who was at Countdown to Craziness visiting, and then Duke really high on Mika Miranen's board, who's a class of 2026 5-star who is greatly considering reclassifying and coming to college a year earlier. So maybe we're not done. Maybe there are a few more names out there, but you start to think scholarships, you start to think NBA draft buzz. It gets tricky right now because, again, Kevin, let's talk about what you just said. We've only had 1 game. Only 1 game has been played for the Duke basketball team that you then start to base off, okay, well, who's going to go to the NBA or who would want to transfer or who's running out of eligibility when, again, it's only just been this first game of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to pull up the roster right now, just trying to piece through it all. I mean, obviously, Cooper Flagg, he is gone. Kamen Malawat seems like he is gone. I mean, let's be honest here. Kneppel, I think he is gone.
Yep.
After the preseason hype he got and what he showed in the exhibition and now 1 game. And then obviously we can go on and on down the list and debate just about every single player. But
and then easier decisions were like Mason Gillis, they run out of college eligibility, right? So those guys are headed off.
So what's that, 5 right off the bat?
Right.
That you have open vacancies. And then obviously you don't know who a player that could transfer and whatnot. So certainly a lot of conversation to be had about what let's see if I get this right, 2025-2026 Duke basketball roster would be. Man, sometimes everything just blends together here.
It's tough because we're just starting this new season, and it's exciting, very exciting for what this Duke team could accomplish this year, and we get to see them back on the hardwood tomorrow. They take on Army before their big test next Tuesday against Kentucky in the Champions Classic. We got to talk about that game, the Army game specifically, and more after we take our last break here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides you the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. The generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Robinhood Gold, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Duke's back in action tomorrow when they get set to take on Army. They have one win already on the season. Do the Blue Devils a 34-point victory over Maine earlier in the week, and excited to see them back out there. What were some of your bigger takeaways from that first game of the season, Kevin?
Well, I just think now that the lights got turned on and you see Connelly and what he is able to do, man, it was special. And you can even make the argument he kind of outshined Cooper Flagg, who was sensational in his debut. First Duke player since Jalen Johnson to have, I think it was 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Or excuse me, 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in their Duke debut. But Con going 22 points, 8 of 14, really a lot of hustle plays. Was impressed with him. I think a lot of people talked about Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor maybe not having the best games. I thought they were fine. I mean, both getting into double figures, both effective from the floor. Tyrese Proctor, all of his made field goals coming from three-point range. I think the biggest thing with Tyrese Proctor is you want to see him get downhill a little bit more and have those free throw numbers rise as a point guard. But I thought it was a really solid opening game. Thought the transfers, Mason Gillis and Sion James, played really well. So I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this Duke opener.
Yeah, with 6 guys in double figures, talked about it on yesterday's show and still believe it. This team's going to be so balanced scoring. Like, I think Flagg and Connelly will lead the way offensively, but then other guys are going to be able to knock down shots and contribute. And that just makes Duke so dangerous to go up against, right? I mean, I hate to look at last year's roster and kind of compare it, but that's what we do at this day and age and this time of the season when you're watching things play out. There's so many dribble drive, open kick out to corner three-point shooters that we saw in this first game and then also in the exhibition matchups. And you can't help but think, Kevin, about last year's team when maybe it was somebody like Mark Mitchell who would have been standing there in the corner and not necessarily the guy that you would want taking that shot. Now you've got somebody like Connelly or Mason Gillis off the bench. Sion James has proven he can knock him down and that sort of thing. Those points continue to go up. I think this is going to be just an unbelievably difficult offense for opposing teams to slow down.
Oh, yeah, and that's what we were talking about all preseason, right? Is this team is supposed to be really good shooting the basketball, and defenses having to guard against those open shooters is going to open up driving lanes for these point guards, for Cooper Flagg to get to the basket and get easy looks. So it's just one game. It is against the main team that's not that great, but you saw everything come together for this Duke team in game one, and you're hoping more of the same tomorrow night against Army, and then obviously when that rolls in to the big-time showdown against Kentucky on Tuesday night.
All right, so Army, the opponent for the Blue Devils tomorrow night. It's a program that has been near and dear to Coach Case Hart for so long, and now we've got another matchup coming here. Looking at what could happen with this matchup in particular and kind of looking at the series. Interesting here, Duke has won all 8 meetings with Army since the series returned back in 1996. The Blue Devils and Black Knights played 7 times between 1932 and 1939, all in New York, with Duke holding a 4-3 edge in those matchups. So way back when, nearly 100 years ago, is when you saw Army beat Duke a couple of times up there in New York. But as of late, this has kind of been really one-sided since that series. I mean, it went from 1939 until 1996, never playing one another. And now it feels like we see these matchups a bit more frequently.
Well, yeah, and it's really cool, right? To begin Veterans Day weekend, you host Army. It feels like it hasn't been a yearly tradition, but it's been pretty close. And Coach K started it a couple of years ago. So certainly cool to see Army and get them down to Durham. And I know obviously there'll be a lot of respect. I would imagine Coach K will be in the house for this game against Army. But when you look at Army as a team, not expected to be very good this year. They're part of the Patriot League, and in the Patriot League preseason poll, they were picked to finish 7th, only ahead of Navy, Holy Cross, and Loyola, Maryland. Did get a victory in their season opener against Albany, but obviously for them, they are taking a major step up in competition here against Duke. So I expect Duke to win comfortably in this game. I think certainly what we've seen from the exhibitions and even in the season opener is this team has taken care of business, and they have not left their opponents hanging around very often. So I would expect to see the same thing tomorrow night against Army. I think Duke will have a strong first half, impose their will physically, and then go a little bit deeper into the bench in the second half.
And we'll see what that does from a rankings perspective going into next Tuesday's game with Kentucky. We already saw a top 10 matchup between Gonzaga and Baylor on Monday night. Tomorrow night, we've got one between UNC and Kansas. So a couple of top 10 teams will have a loss on their record if no one else falls going into the weekend as well. But those are 2 top 10 matchups that are going to be really exciting to see going into next weekend. And we'll kind of see how the rankings fluctuate following that and what's going to be a crazy game against Kentucky. Offensively, I do think we're going to see this Duke team continue to be so very balanced. My thing I'm watching for, I really want to see, Kevin, how Common Malawach can be involved a little bit more. He scores 4 of Duke's first 6 points in the game, only added 2 more the rest of the way. They're knocking down shots from the outside. Duke still did a very fine job. I just want to see the big fella get to throw a couple of more down that are on the inside, Kev.
No, and I agree with you. And I think that was a really strong way to start off the game. And it was really Cooper Flag that got Common involved on that first play, get him a couple of dunks, get him involved in the game, get him comfortable, and then you start rolling from there. But I agree with you. I would like to see, especially if this game does get out of hand and the big fella's still in there, run a couple of post-ups for him. Get him a lot more comfortable, because you want opponents to have that in the back of their mind that, all right, they can throw it to this guy down on the block, and he can put it on the deck and go score. So I certainly agree with you. I think to get him involved early again, and even if this game is out of control late, still feed it inside to the big guy and let him go to work and get him more comfortable posting up and what is back to the basket.
All right, it's going to be fun watching Duke basketball again tomorrow night, taking on Army. Kevin, it's always so great to see you. Go ahead and let the people know about Ball Durham and how they can best support you.
Yeah, over at Ball Durham, you could come give us a follow and read us every single day. Again, it's over at balldurham.com. We got tons of content on Duke basketball, ACC basketball. We're all over it over there. So again, it's balldurham.com. Come give us a read every day.
It's great to see you, Kevin. Thanks for the time.
You too, JJ. Thanks, man.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that's going to do it for our program here today. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to have a fun little crossover with our friends over at NC State ahead of the Duke and NC State football game coming up this weekend. That's going to be a fun one that you don't want to miss. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.